Good morning. Meteorologist Lisa Green here with a look at what we can expect on this first alert weather day as we're heading into another round of cooling air. We get a reinforcing shot today, and that may lead to some mornings ahead that we are dealing with some patchy frost. And I know it's important to know what those temperatures are going to be because we still have our gardens going in a lot of places. So I want to make sure we're paying attention each night and maybe just going ahead and taking those precautions to protect your tender plants here in the coming nights. And in addition to that, it's back to school. The last students started back to school this week, and so I'm doing a little thing called Learning with Lisa this week. We're going to be talking about concepts that have to do with fall time, what we often see during the fall. We've already gone over a couple of topics here the last couple of days. The difference between meteorological and astronomical fall. Of course, we talked about that and how meteorological fall follows more along the lines of the weather we typically see this time of year versus astronomical fall, which is when we have the fall equinox. It's more about the Earth's position relative to the sun. We're actually going to talk about that in a couple of minutes, or in just a moment rather. Also, during fall time, as we're falling into autumn, we're oftentimes seeing that first frost, and that's happening this week. And so we talked about that yesterday, and fog and the processes that are involved in that. And so for today, we are highlighting our daylight trends because we are starting to lose more and more daylight as we get closer and closer to the equinox and eventually later this year into the winter solstice. So let's talk about it. The reason for the season. So of course, the Earth rotates around the sun. One complete rotation is one full year, 365 and a quarter days that happens. And so the one thing to keep in mind is that the Earth is on a tilt. Its axis is not straight up and down as it spins around. It's actually tilted about 23.5 degrees. And so that tilt makes the difference. It's the reason for the seasons, because where it's tilted in relation to where it is at a certain day around the sun determines how much daylight we're getting in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere. So let's talk about what we're doing here as we're heading into the vernal equinox and the autumnal equinox. Both are at different periods of the year, but it's basically the same thing here. So the spring or vernal equinox, March 20th this year, and then the fall equinox falls on September 22nd. So we'll see that here in about 20 days or so. And that is a time where the center of the sun's rays directly over the equator. So you can see this is the sun here, and its direct rays are most direct right over the equator. And so all areas of the Earth at this point in the year receive about 12 hours of daylight. Now, it's not always the case that on the equinox we get that amount. Of course, we have, again, that extra quarter day each year, so we have to account for leap years and leap days and that sort of thing. So it's not always perfect, but we are looking at 12 hours of daylight at the Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle on the on the equinox, and 12 hours of daylight at the equator. And a reminder, we mentioned this the other day, equinox, that's Latin for equal night. Nox means night. So we're transitioning, though, when we're in the fall equinox to lesser daylight hours a day. So just showing you the difference here for summer, where the northern hemisphere is tilted toward the sun, again at maximum 23.5 degrees at the Tropic of Cancer there, where the sun's direct rays are passing over. So we're getting more direct daylight. That means we get longer days in the northern hemisphere and shorter days in the southern hemisphere. So on that day, the Arctic Circle gets the 24 hours of light. I'm sure you know about this. And then at the equator, still at 12 hours. And then at the Tropic of Capricorn, it's less. And at the Antarctic Circle, it's dark there. And then we flip things for the winter solstice, and that's where we're heading into the end of the year. And so that's when the northern hemisphere, you can barely see the U.S. here, is tilted away from the sun. The tilt doesn't change again. It's all in relation to where the Earth and its revolution around the sun happens to be, because the tilt stays the same. So when it's pointed at the sun, northern hemisphere gets more daylight, and then when it's pointed away from the sun, Again, the northern hemisphere gets less. So again, that's just kind of an overview of, what causes the seasons, why we are losing daylight this time of year, because we're into that point where we are tilting away from the sun. Not quite there yet. That starts on the equinox, but we are losing daylight hours. So again, let's take a look at the changing sun angle. What kind of difference does that make for us as we are going about our day? Well, we're looking at less direct rays from the sun. So on today's date, the solar noon happens, well, not exactly at noon because we're at daylight saving time right now, so we're kind of ahead of ourselves here. So solar noon happens at 1 p.m. And so the sun at that time, its angle is at 50.4 degrees. That's its angle from the surface and its highest point. And so we're getting that more direct daylight at that point. Once we head toward the winter solstice, that's when we're at that 23 or so degree angle, and it's more of a glancing angle, glancing energy, and so we don't warm up as well, and that's why it's harder to melt snow in the winter time once it falls and once it's there. It's highly reflective, so we don't absorb a lot of the energy from the sun anyway, and then its angle is so glancing that we're not getting that direct energy. So that's the implication of, again, that lower sun angle that we'll be seeing over time, and less daylight too. Less sun also means we don't get a chance to warm up as much. So let's talk about the changes we're seeing here. So in August, the second we get to the solstice, the summer solstice, we're losing daylight from that point on. We're gaining it up to the solstice in the northern hemisphere, and then we're losing it as we are heading into the second half of the year and heading toward the winter solstice. So in August, we were losing daylight, about 90 minutes in the northern two-thirds of the valley, and we were losing daylight and about 80 minutes of daylight lost in August in the southern valley and parts of South Dakota. Now, moving ahead into September, we are still losing daylight and at a faster rate. And so we are losing about 90 minutes of daylight in the southern two-thirds of the valley, basically Highway 2 point south. So that's an hour and a half of daylight we lose this month. And then up along the border areas, it's more like 100 minutes of daylight. So again, with the changing of the season, we are seeing that sunset happening earlier and earlier, and the sunrise happening later and later. October still losing daylight, but then we start to, once we hit that equinox, the rate of decrease starts to go down, so that's good news, but we are still, of course, losing daylight heading into the month of December, and total for December is about 10 minutes that we lose. And again, once we reach the winter solstice, we start gaining daylight again. So that's something to look forward to as we get into those darker months. So that's the daylight change over the course of the months. I do want to talk about specific numbers here so we can be prepared. So for today's date, our September 3rd, our sunrise was at 6:49 and sunset 8:01. Actually, tomorrow in Fargo is the last time we'll see an 8 p.m. sunset for a while. And then on Friday, we will have sunsets starting in that 7 o'clock hour. So again, losing daylight. I know I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's good to be prepared for this. One thing to note, another date is, of course, the equinox. Sunrise will happen at 7:14 a.m. and then sunset about 7:24. And then don't forget that daylight saving time ends in November 2nd. So about a month from now, we will fall back. And that means that our sunrises and sunsets will also fall back. So what does that mean? We're losing daylight still heading into September, October, and then early November. So on November 1st, our sunrise is actually around that 6:11 time frame, or excuse me, that 8:11 time frame. So we gain a little daylight back in the morning, but we're losing it in the evening with that transition to daylight saving time. So the day before November 2nd, sunset will be around 6:09 p.m. But again, we have to fall back, so we're looking at sunset happening at 5:09. So again, it's going to be looking pretty dark at that point in the evening hours. And then, of course, the winter solstice, this is when we have the least amount of daylight in the northern hemisphere. That's sunrise at 8:09 and then sunset at 4:41. And so if we were to stay on daylight saving time all year round, I know there's some argument for that, and that's another subject. We won't get into much detail here right now, but if we were to stay on daylight saving time, we wouldn't see the sun come up until 9:09. I know it'd be nice to have the sun hanging around after 5, but sunrise would be very, very late if we were to do that. So that's sunrise and sunset times. We're losing currently 3 minutes and 14 seconds of daylight a day. So again, another thing that happens with fall is we're losing that daylight. So we wanted to talk about that and what causes it here this morning in our little Learning with Lisa segment here this morning. But let's talk about the fall weather we're about to be experiencing, or actually we're in the middle of it now. We do have our first alert weather day here for today. We are talking about much colder air moving in. We've got another kind of secondary cold front, a second push of colder air moving in, and that is coming in with some wind as well. So we've got this big temperature drop from earlier this week, and then blustery north winds, most of us gusting into the 30s. There is a potential that some of us out west, James River Valley, Devil's Lake Basin, may see a gust around 45. Certainly in central North Dakota, it's more likely. And then also some patchy frost by Thursday morning. The wind eases up, allowing that frost to develop. So tonight may be a night, especially in some of our more trouble spot areas, where you may want to take some measures to protect your tender plants here. And we might need a couple of nights of this. Temperatures themselves, they are right now into the 40s and 50s. So not bad when we're this way in the early morning hours. It's just that we're not going to warm up a ton as we continue to get that colder air rushing in for today. So likely staying in the 50s for most areas. And we're currently running a good 10 to 20 degrees cooler right now at 11:01 a.m. than we were at this exact time yesterday. So definitely feeling that cool down that's been happening for us here in the valley. And so let's take a look at what's going on. We've got that secondary round, that secondary push of cooler air moving in. By the way, I don't have that in this presentation, but we do have the wildfire smoke in place. And so that is going to be a factor for the day today. We have had air quality in the yellow, moderate to orange, which is unhealthy for sensitive groups range. But as this colder air pushes in and the wind picks up, that plume's going to get pushed south too. So we'll see some improving conditions as we head into tonight. And there's also some showers out there. Not much to show you right now on our radar, but they're out there and may be a factor for us heading into this afternoon and tonight. Speaking of wind, it's picking up. We've got some gusts right now close to 30 miles per hour in Grand Forks at 28, a gust to 23 in Fargo, Wadena, a gust to 26. So again, that's cooler air that is rushing into the valley. And taking a look at our wind forecast, we will see, so this starts a little bit later. This starts at 2 p.m. I think around noon, 1 o'clock, we could see wind gusts around 30 miles per hour. And then they start to come down as we head into tonight. And that's a big factor for that frost formation here with that wind easing up tonight. So our afternoon planner, again, mid to upper 50s, maybe one or two places in the south seeing 60 degrees, some varying sun and clouds. And in addition to that, there may be some showers, especially in the northeast, where we are closer to that transitional area where that low happens to be. So again, it is a cold day today compared to where we've been. We were at 76 yesterday. We will be nowhere near that today, and certainly not 80 like we started off the week with. So here's our hour-by-hour planner. We're watching these clouds and a few areas of shower activity continuing to move through. And that will be a factor all the way into tonight, that possibility with some clouds hanging around again into the overnight hours. Here's the thing. This particular model keeps more clouds around, others have us clearing out a little bit more. And so if we do see more clearing, that creates the increasing chance of frost developing. If we keep the clouds around, and you can see this rain moving in for Thursday, that comes in a little sooner, that helps to insulate us a little bit and prevents frost formation. So it's one thing we can hope for, but I can't guarantee that's going to happen. So again, we want to make sure that you're prepared. Let's talk about frost. We really need a few things for it to form. So we're talking about temperatures need to get to freezing. Doesn't necessarily mean the air temperature does. It means the temperature at the surface needs to get to freezing for those ice crystals to form. But above, where we measure air temperature about 5 feet up, we talked about this yesterday, it can still be in the mid-30s, and still we could see frost at the surface. So we need some temperatures near or below freezing. Clear skies, again, that's going to be a big question for tomorrow morning, and calm wind or calm air. And we've got a lot of the ingredients here. For Fargo tomorrow morning, we're looking at a low of about 39 degrees. That may be a little too warm, but some surrounding areas may get into the 30s. Sky conditions, partly cloudy, so we'll see. We'll see who has the clouds and who doesn't. And then the wind, it should be pretty light, less than 10 miles per hour, and some of us less than 5. So those ingredients experience, have us concerned that we might see a little bit of patchy frost. And taking a look at some of our temperatures, I think it's going to be coldest in the northeast. So I think this is the area especially that needs to be prepared for frost. But you can see a lot of places dipping into the 30s tomorrow morning. You can see partly cloudy skies, but again, notice that little rain cloud we have here out west because of that next chance for rain moving in for Thursday. So be ready for frost tomorrow night, and if it doesn't happen tomorrow night, it may happen other nights this week as we keep this cooler air around. I want to look at Thursday. You can see that we've got some rain moving in really quick here. We'll be dealing with that throughout the day, that possibility for showers. So just a gray, rainy, cool day. We're going to see temperatures, again, struggling to warm up for our Thursday. You can see the numbers on the map here, 40s and 50s. That might be it for the day on Thursday. This is 5 p.m. So really feeling the chill tomorrow especially. Not as windy, but still feeling the cooler air and the rain. And then that moves on heading into Friday, and overnight Thursday night and into Friday morning, we may break up those clouds again, which could lead to more frost if we cool down enough. So looking at our rainfall potential for Thursday, we're looking out for not a ton, but we do have the potential for everybody to have some rain, and most of us ½ inch or less, but there could be a couple of pockets that get a little bit more with that latest round. So I do want to show you one more thing, just expanding the view. We talked about this yesterday. I'm going to step over here so we can see it a little bit better. There's blue on the map, and that's going to be outside of our viewing area, north of Thunder Bay into Ontario, but still it's close by, too close for comfort, I think, for a lot of us, that we're indicating some of our models, not all of them are showing that potential for snow, but some showing a little bit of snow into Ontario with this event, and that is going to stay well out of our area. We're just looking at rain again heading into Thursday, but it will feel rather cool as we're experiencing that. So just wanted to point that out. You may notice it, and you can check it on the VNL weather app as we get into the forecast for tomorrow. So again, just a reminder, cold air sinking in, Arctic air coming into the valley. This time of year doesn't mean like that Arctic feel, but certainly going to cool us down quite a bit as we continue in the forecast. And I'm just going to zip through a reminder. Anywhere where we have blue, we have some much cooler air. Where we have the yellows, warm tones, warm colors, that's warmer air. So this is Thursday morning, heading into Friday. You can see we got this kind of reinforcing shot of some chill going on here heading into Friday afternoon, with the coldest core of air, again, right where we were seeing that snow north of Lake Superior into Ontario. And then Saturday morning, still in that colder air mass. It's going to take a minute. We'll have to get into Sunday really here before we start to see some signs of change. This is Sunday afternoon, and then moving into Monday, doing much better at that point. So again, it'll be a little bit before we improve. But we're looking out for several mornings here where we've got to keep an eye out for potential frost. Now, this morning or tomorrow morning is going to be pretty chilly. I also think Saturday morning could be one of our colder mornings too, but even Friday and Sunday, 40s is good. We want to be in the 40s if we're going to be cool here. However, as long as we're in the 40s, there is a potential we'll see some places in the valley dip into the 30s each morning, and that possibility for patchy frost. But again, notice Monday, our lows on Monday really improving as we get that warmer air moving back in. So here's a look at our extended planner. Again, today, first alert weather day. We're watching out for a little bit of shower activity. We're looking out for wind. We're looking out for especially the cool air taking over. And then we'll be watching for, again, some chilly mornings ahead that could include some patchy frost and high temperatures that struggle. Some 50s to 60 on Thursday, might even be some 40s on Thursday in the north. And then as we head into the weekend, keeping things cool. Sunday, Monday, that's when we notice that difference. We start getting into some 70s. And next week actually looks pretty decent. We'll be back into some mid to some upper 70s next week. Some more comfortable September weather to come here in the forecast. So that's something to look forward to as we're making our plans for next week. And again, we're going to keep this little segment going here this week as we're heading back to school and talking about fall. We're going to get into Thursday, first snow. When do we typically see it? And what might we expect here this week? And, well, we saw that there are some places in the region up toward Ontario that might see our first flake or two. So we'll get into that coming up. And then the Science of Fall colors coming up for Friday as we prepare for those leaves to start to change. And I've seen some trees that have shown some colors changing already. So more fun to do with the changeover to fall conditions that we've been experiencing. Again, September 1st is the first day of meteorological fall. So it's fun to talk about that coinciding with heading back to school here this week. So again, be ready for the cold, be ready for the potential for some frost overnight tonight. And we'll pull this up full screen as we say goodbye, but we'll have another update coming up later this afternoon on how things are looking as far as temperatures are concerned and tracking that next round of rain too coming up for tomorrow. So in the meantime, hopefully you've gone into your fall wardrobe and picked out your jacket or flannel or hoodie that you want to wear over the next couple of days, because you're probably going to need it, especially in the morning hours. Have a great Wednesday.